I write about chess and I talk about chess, and what I really dig about those two activities is that I only have to shut up when I run out of disk space or classroom time. But in this series for Scobar Chess, I am limited to 10 minutes per talk. So I always come back to one brief single thing that every chess player must understand. Pattern recognition is what makes you a chess player. So spend your time looking at positions and short games because those are usually determined by a pattern which can be learned. I want to show you how knowing this pattern from Mises Omquist, Nuremberg, 1895, helped the player choose between two moves in a similar position. In this center counter game, after 3 knight c3, the usual move is queen a5 to stay developed. But when black plays queen d8, he should be aiming to bear down on the d4 pawn. The typical scheme here, ignore white's a pawn. A typical scheme is g6 plus bishop g7 plus knight h6 and knight f5. Then black's kingside minor pieces plus the queen cooperate against d4. Obviously, black had the d4 pawn in mind when he played knight c6 and bishop g4, pinning the f3 knight. But players must know this variation on Le Gaul's checkmating theme. The bishop g4 pin is not absolute. The knight can move. So when the black knight hops to e5, white can just take it. If black plays queen d7 here, white winds up at least a piece ahead. But after 8c6, 9dc threatens a checkmate following c7. Queen b6 is an inadequate defense. cb discovers a check. ba queen is another checkmate. So black blocked the c7 square, but there's a different mate. Knowing that Mises game helped white choose a good sixth move in this club game. When black plays c5, it's a little more difficult for white to put a second pawn in the center without having to sacrifice it for this wing pawn. So if white doesn't want to lose that center pawn, he should play 2c3 plus d4, and then he'll have a pawn on c3 ready to recapture. Or white can gambit the b pawn. Then it's the same whether black plays knight b4 or cb4. White gets to build up a pawn center. d6 doesn't take enough space in the center because white is allowed to fill up the center with an attacking move. After knight e5, white is thinking about what he can do to develop with a threat. It's easy enough to play knight e5, de, bishop b2. But when white is familiar with the Mises game, he has to be thinking, what can I do to coax or persuade black to play bishop g4? An immediate bishop b2 also threatens e5 twice, and black might be persuaded to play the losing bishop g4 move. And now we follow the same pattern from the Mises game. If black captures on e5, white is simply a piece ahead by capturing on g4. And white wins a piece after winning the queen back. When white retreated his bishop, he's one piece ahead while threatening the bishop on d1 and threatening to move his knight away from e5, perhaps capturing on f7. Black resigned. Capablanca said, in order to improve your game, you must study the endgame before anything else. Endgames include checkmating patterns.